All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go again with another comic book bold drawing avatar. So, as you can see, I did my light bulb first for the torso. Now I'm getting the legs in, chest, shoulders, head right quick. And of course, this is Jake, the star of the movie. And I picked this pose. I wanted to do some that's sort of movie-esque. You know what I'm saying? Like a pinup style. So I was like, let me do the main character, Jake Sully, in the middle, front and center, doing the details on his head. So that's why I got it right here in the center of the page. Big old eyes. Thinking about that. You know, sort of actually a cat-like face to me. High ears. Got the headband. In this movie, he had kind of dreads. And the movie I'm referencing is Fire and Ash. So, got the dreadlock look. Getting the shoulders down. And I'm trying to be mindful of the lanky body that he has, and the long arms and long legs. So I'm thinking about those things right there. And actually, I'm putting in all the muscles and things now. And I'm also kind of thinking about the light source now. So I put that on the face. But I'm getting all the details. What's ironic, I'm actually looking at a toy. I had gone through a lot of different things in terms of posing, meaning I looked at some scenes from the movie and different pics that way. I looked at, just other artists and how they had drawn and conceptualized the avatar. So this is what I came up with. So I'm getting all the details, one hand. And I'm thinking about, oh man, these long arms, making sure I make these arms a little longer than I normally would. Setting that elbow down. Now I'm thinking about the shadow. I've determined where my light source is. So I'm making sure I do the opposites, putting on the bands on his arm and the forearm protection. Got the feathers, Native American-esque feathers that decorate and adorn the body. And then the space-age military weaponry, I'm working on that, which is something I don't normally or have not drawn regularly, which is weaponry. But this was a big part of all the Avatar movies, especially Fire and Ash. So now I'm working on all that right there. I'll take this time to say, like, subscribe, follow, friend, connect, kick it with me. Most of all, get Mctivated. Want a commission done? Just hit me up. All my info is in the description. Yeah, so I'm working on this weaponry right here, trying to put all the doodads and gadgets and what may go where. And it's kind of cool because I'm just kind of making up stuff. And I have made up weaponry before. So, comic book style. So I'm doing that. And I'm thinking what goes where now. The tail. Now I'm thinking about how his little trunks are. And I'm really kind of thinking Native American, tribal type of stuff. Don't want to go too Tarzan with it. And I'm also looking at my reference which again is a toy, posed very similarly to this. After all the things that I looked at, the toy to me was the most, I don't know, attractive in terms of the pose. I did kind of beef them up, maybe actually a little too much, and this is me in retrospect looking at it. As I was drawing it, I just follow what Ron Benjamin always says: just throw the lines, man. Just get it down. Doing some of the tribal markings that they kind of paint on themselves. I'm getting the shadows down for the little brief shadows. I'm kind of working with that. Getting my light source right. Seeing where everything is. And actually, after I put the shadows down, it kind of came together for me a little better. Because I did recognize around this time, here I go with the tail. I did recognize that, I may have beefed him up too much. As I looked at the tail, I said, man, I don't want the tail and the gun to be on the same side. So I put the end of the tail on the opposite side, kind of balance out the picture a little bit. Put the feathers on the headband. Now I'm looking at it, trying to see what else I can do. I can shade the weapon. So I'm shading the weapon. Thinking, okay, light on one side, shade on the other. Yeah, just fixing all this up, thinking to myself what works. Shade on the tail. Recognizing some other stuff. And so I threw in the faces of the other two people in this. What is it? Natari and Varang. Natari being his wife, woman, companion. Jake Sully's better half, and the other one being the villain of that movie, Fire and Ash, Varang, and she is a beast, meaning she is a very good villain. She's a very good villain. So now I'm doing my inks, right? And I got a real small detail brush. Actually, I think I said brush, but I meant pen. This pen is like a 003, I believe. So this is real tiny. There's some Todd Knock talks about getting the reflective light and shadow on the nose, then the side of the face. Making sure I can get those details as fine as I need to get them with a small pen. Getting the shading in the ear. Yeah. And so Avatar Fire and Ash, when it came out, my wife and I went to go check it out. First week, I'm an avid moviegoer, and I thought it was cool. I did. I thought it was cool. I also thought it kind of reflected a lot of what went on in the second installment of this trilogy. So I was kind of thinking about that a little bit as a moviegoer. Saying, okay, maybe what could they have done differently? But all in all, I think it was great entertainment. Enough so that I actually wanted to do this. This isn't a commission. It's just something that I've wanted to do. And why did I want to do it? Because I actually saw a J. Scott Campbell image of Avatar. I changed that arm, made it come more into the chest area, kind of line up a little better. But J. Scott Campbell's version of Avatar I thought was real interesting and inspiring. So he is one of my influences, and I extended that elbow out a little more, make that arm a little longer. Also, Avatar period kind of reminds me of J. Scott Campbell's anatomy, because his anatomy is, typically a little long. I would say longer than normal. And also Brett Booth. And both of those creators are influences of mine. Great, dynamic comic book artists that I love their stuff. Brett Booth is very dynamic, man. I love his panel work and how it has evolved, and that has influenced me. And just the action you get, you could take his drawings out and just look at his panels and know that action is happening. And I think he does a great job, in my opinion, of putting together some great dynamic pages and layouts. Also, I'm a fan of his figures as well, from that Image school, and J. Scott Campbell as well. So a lot of the tropes and artistic things, elements that they put in their drawings kind of come from that Homage Studio look. So I really appreciate that, and am drawn to that look. And J. Scott Campbell, I think he phrased his type of art beautifully when he came out with a book titled Lineology. So J. Scott Campbell is the lineologist. He is definitely a cool artist in terms of comic books, and I love what he does and his characteristic type of drawings, and the way he's able to capture likeness since the beginning, Gen 13 and all that. So yeah, he is definitely an influence and a talented and dynamic artist that, man, I wish I had a tenth of what he has, along with Brett Booth as well. So anyway, I'm inking all this stuff right now. And like I said, I wanted this to be kind of movie-esque, a poster type of pin-up type of drawing. Like every commission, you wanted to have some type of flavor. But I was really thinking movie poster, sort of that classic Star Wars type of thing. And even when you're inking, as you can see, I kind of changed around some stuff. Kind of pulled his torso a little smaller, made one of the biceps a little bigger, just so that it would make a little more sense to me. Extended that elbow, or the arm I'm working on now. I'm doing the wristband. So I was thinking about all those things to make it work a little better with what I was doing. So one thing I thought about was, man, I have my legs kind of ending in the knees. So that's a no-no. Don't ever do that. Never crop or cut your picture off at a joint. It makes it look crazy. But I thought about, especially if it gets colored, if I decide to color this, or somebody wants to buy this and get it colored, then what I do is kind of smoke out the bottom or something like that. So that's what I was kind of thinking. The headband on Atari. I'm working on her face. Big cat-like eyes. I really believe they look, and by they I mean this alien race looks very cat-like, although their skin is blue. They have a very cat-like look, kind of extending over that the mouth from where I drew it, and then I'm moving the nose over a little bit to line up with the eyes. Jim Lee talks about this. Everything is drawn in relation to something else, so it's a matter of me looking at what I've drawn and trying to line it up properly afterwards. As I drew the eyes, I didn't want them necessarily looking straight at each other, even though it kind of appears that Natari is looking straight at Varang. However, that's not the case. She's kind of looking forward side or 3/4 side, and Varang is as well. But it kind of gives you that, that stare down feel. Two women battling. And I don't think it's no secret that if you haven't seen the movie, it's not a spoiler. I mean, it's been out. So what I'll say is they didn't like each other. I think I'm safe by saying that. She's the villain, and she did not hold back. And Natari definitely didn't like her. So I'll just leave it at that right there. And I decided to make her smile, give her sort of a sinister smile, because she's kind of playing with everyone. And she had a very unique power. Again, the movie has been out a while, so you probably know what I'm talking about. But if you don't, I won't tell you what it is. Putting on her the things that she's supposed to have in terms of this marking, getting her eyes, kind of the other 3/4 view. And she had like a feathered headband. So I'm inking that just to make that distinction with her. And it is called Fire and Ash, so why not put a little fire in there? That adds to the movie-esque look of this pinup, this drawing, this commission. Hopefully commission, or hopefully someone will say, oh man, I love that avatar, Ron Mac. Let me get that. And so the pose, as I said, for Jake Sully is a toy. Man, after looking at all the different pictures, this toy that I saw really, to me, kind of embodied what I wanted. Him holding that gun and ready to get down on it. So now, I'll tell you what I'm doing. I am trying to fix the proportions of the face. So I'm looking, I'm saying, is this even? A front-on view actually is often done in comic books. But it's also one of the hardest things to do because the premise is that it's symmetrical. When you have a 3/4 or some other angled look, you can get away with some things that aren't so consistent. But when you have it face forward, you have to be as consistent as you possibly can. So, for instance, the body is turned, so I don't have to worry about line for line consistency on the chest or the legs or anything. The arms aren't in the same position, so that lends itself to go good with whatever I'm trying to do, right? So anyway, now I'm putting in the dreadlocks with my magic. You know, this is what I really love. Putting some shadows up under that. Now I'm getting some of this variety of line, this calligraphy line, as my professor called it. I've said many times on these streams. Fixing that part of the back because it was a little uneven. Talking about that symmetry. Trying to line stuff up. And actually, I wanted to extend those shoulders, so I made those shoulders a little long. Typically, the shoulder does not go down as far as the bottom of the chest. A lot of times, when people draw the chest, they draw the bottom of the chest and the bottom of the shoulders the same length down, which is not the case in real life. So sometimes you try to be mindful of those things, but also recognizing that you want your stuff to look heroic. I once heard an elder artist in talking about how Jim Lee creates pages and his work, and he said Jim Lee makes characters heroic. And honestly, he was kind of saying it like a slight, and I actually like that. I like the fact that you have stylized and thought of the character in such a way that it looks heroic. It's not just real life. It is something extra, something different. So now I'm putting in all of the details on this space age rifle, making sure I put the shadows in, give it that depth. And I will say, and I heard, and he's passed on, but great artist Jason Pearson talk about how no matter how cartoony your style is, if you shade it right, it can bring it to life. And so I'm a fan of his work as well, and I believe that to be the case because he told me that online in an interview somewhere. He said that, and I always thought that to be the case. So as I darken these things on the gun, I think it brings it out. It definitely gives it some three-dimensionality. And so now that I got the white of the gun and the black of the gun, I'm doing some shading and some hatching to give me a gray on the gun. If I were to color this, I would definitely move the highlight and leave it white, and then make the top part gray, bluish gray or something like that. And I think that would even bring more of a three-dimensionality to it, of course, leaving room for color, as they say. So now I'm going through all the places I've designated as shading and shadow, and I'm hatching through those and doing my detail work now. You know, a master of doing this is Dave Finch, and you know, he would make all these places black with those hard shadows, and man, beautiful as well. I know I got into that at one point when I was influenced by Travis Terrell, whose stuff was realistic, and the way he represented blacks and whites, man, it was just so evident in his penned pencils. If you just saw black and white of his art, it was crazy. And then he started getting into the gray tones, which was even more crazy. And I think, and I've said this before, it just influenced the whole industry. Everybody started following suit. I won't say everybody, but a lot of people started following suit. And I do credit Travis Terrell for influencing a lot of comic book artists to do that style that he kind of evolved from that image, homage style that Jim Lee had. And even when people were saying he was a Jim Lee clone, I don't think any of these artists are Jim Lee clones. I think they all have brought their own thing to the game, their own thing to comic books and art, and have influenced people. Yeah. So, but I will say this, if you're going to be a clone of anybody, Jim Lee is not a bad person to be a clone of. Or any of the artists I just said. You know. Anyway, I'm shading and I'm feathering, getting a little more three-dimensionality on these coarse shadows. Trying to bring this thing to life. Pull out these muscles a little bit. And normally I leave a little halo, but since I did, you know, these shadows with hatching, then I didn't really have to do the defined halo. I could kind of do it with color. And I'll say this to all you aspiring artists out there. I consider myself still aspiring. Oh, cast shadow. The gun has a cast shadow. So I remember seeing stuff like this and saying, oh, man, that looks fly. And then when I draw it, I say, oh, I don't want to mess up my picture right there. But, and like I said, Dave Finch would make that all black. Man, that's scary. Anyway, That's it, ladies and gentlemen. Avatar. Yeah, I hope you like it. It's Ron Mac. Hit me up.
Leron-mcadoo found joy in drawing superheroes, but he was an illiterate third grader. So suddenly his mother said she would not buy another comic book until he could read them. McAdoo rose above being afraid of words to getting paid for words. Now he uses words to get people Mctivated about their own superpower. He drew strength from drawing. This is Comicbook Bold. To see his comic commissions and comic art, go to pinterest.com at that hip hop and select leron-mcadoo-art.